My name is Sarah Whitlock. I am recording this for EDU 626 under the Professor of Christelle Brody at Georgetown College. I researched opening up communication between ESL, English as a Second Language students. My research project was titled Getting English as a Second Language Students to Communicate Using the World-Class Instructional Design Assessment Can-Do Descriptors. My rationale for doing this research, was that there is an increase of ESL population in Fayette County, especially in the area that I am in. Teachers have minimal ESL training, and I have a desire to share the resources that I have, and was wanting to find out a medium in which to do that. And students and teachers are both wanting to increase the communication between ESL students and their peers. So, as said before, my research question ended up being, what's the most effective way to get ESL students to communicate using the WIDA can-do descriptors? There is a great influx of the ESL population amongst Fayette County, as well as everywhere in the U.S. Kentucky resettles more than half of the nation's national average, and there is a 269% increase of non-native speakers in Fayette County alone, going from the years of 2005 to 16. So that's just in 11 years, it's gone up 269%. This graph shows the majority of where refugees in the U.S. come from. Currently, according to Priceonomics, in 2016, Syria was the second largest country that brought in refugees to the U.S. Right before that was Burma, and right before that was Iraq. Next, I'm going to move on to the WIDA standards. WIDA is short for the World-Class Instruction Design Assessment. It's a set of language standards for teachers to go by when teaching non-native speakers. There are 6 different levels: entering, emerging, developing, expanding, bridging, and reaching, which is when the student tests out of ESL. There are 4 different domains, which include listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And the WIDA really helps teachers align lessons with the progression of each student. The Access Test is a test that all ESL students will take annually to measure their English development in the 4 domains. And it's a good measure to see where they're going to be at for next year's placement. The following are just some examples of different topics that might be taught in each language. So under the language of mathematics, which is standard 3, some topics that might be taught are equivalency, shapes, measurement. Under social studies, it may be food, families, school, classroom, and under language, you might go over school in a language manner, family, social behavior, spiritual relations. Not every state has adopted the WIDA standards. Currently, there's 35 out of the 50 states that have it and adhere to it for their ESL students. And with that comes the can-do descriptors. So under each level and each domain comes a variety of skills that the student should be able to do at each of those levels. It gives teachers a good guide to see what their ESL student can do at each certain phases of their English development, and it helps guide the instruction so that they know how to communicate with their students as well as plan the lessons for them. When doing my literature review and reading various articles and diving into the connection between communication with the ESL students using these can-do descriptors, there are 3 commonalities that I came to find, being retaining information, group talk, and modifications. Retaining information, I really found that there was positive growth with communication through games, so playing games with the students, letting the students play their own games, And then to allow students to know their own abilities so that they are more aware of their own learning and are able to take action on it. And then something I saw come up over and over was the socio-psycholinguistic point of view, reading for meaning. So kids taking action in their own understanding and their own reading in what exactly they're reading and what they're learning. And then academic language through daily conversation between the teacher and the students. The modifications that teachers can make can be a variety of things. Some that I have noticed have been most helpful for teachers and for their students in order to gain some academic understanding and English development are decodable books for those early learners, alphabet books, and then for the teachers to consider, are the materials that I'm giving my student authentic? Are they predictable for the students? Is there a good picture so that that student can make the connection to the text? And do they provoke imagination for that student to get them thinking? And the last commonality that I found was group talk. Group interaction between peers is essential to allow for time for the students to talk to each other. Even if in the beginning they are shy, don't communicate all that much, that will open up and it will become easier for them. Promoting academic talk with common conversations would allow for a more development of English in a more casual way. Asking probing questions rather than just yes or no, and giving students the opportunity to talk freely amongst each other and with yourself, with the teacher. There's different laws and mandates that all put this into place. One that is very large and important is the Title III language instruction for limited English proficient and immigrant students. This just requires teachers to serve these ESL students with the correct materials, the correct information, and to give them what they need in order to succeed. So when I did my research, I did it on the 4th grade ELA teachers. These teachers taught language arts, and they had all of them had more than 5 years experience, but they all lacked WIDA training. They participated in a 1-hour training on the can-do descriptors and did a survey consisting of 6 questions. It was a mixed design approach. My data came out as the teachers there was one teacher that had taught more than 17 years. There was one teacher that taught between 13 and 16 years. There was one teacher that taught between 9 and 12. And then there were 2 teachers that taught between 5 and 8. This puts 100% of the group as veteran teachers. They're all tenured at this point. The amount of schooling that these teachers have had, all of them have, of course, their bachelor's, which is required, and then 3 out of 4 of them are completed their master's. 3 out of 5 have completed their master's, while 1 out of 5 of the teachers is still working towards her master's, and then 1 has obtained her national board certification, which is beyond her master's. In the pre-training survey, this is before they had the training and the survey that it gave them, they were to either circle 1 through 5, 1 being they don't agree with the question, 3 is I don't know, and 5 was they do agree. The only question that all teachers circled a 4 or 5 for was the question that asked them if they think the WIDA standards would be helpful in getting their ESL students to communicate. The other questions asked about WIDA and asked how aware they were of how to use it, how to use the can-do descriptors, and if they had had any training in it. All of them had circled I don't know for the majority of the questions. In the post-training survey, all of that changed to I agree. All teachers agreed that they felt like they understood what the WIDA standards were. They also felt they understood how to use it in their classroom, and that they would be interested in further training because they think it would be a benefit to the future ESL kids that are going to be in their class. In my field notes, when I observed the students before and after the training, when they communicated with each other, I used 4 main coding letters. Refocus was an R, distraction was a D, avoidance was an A, and participation was a P. Those were the four main topics that I discovered were arising over and over. Some takeaways that I had and some ideas that I had for the school in order to increase communication between their ESL students is that maybe there could possibly be a required staff training in the WIDA standards every year or twice a year, since there's such an increase in ESL students. I feel like this should be a mandate rather than something that's just for ESL teachers. I also think it would be of benefit to offer ESL teacher mentor help throughout the year so that there can kind of be a shadow for teachers if they're unsure of how to teach their non-native speakers or how to plan for them and use different techniques. I also think that the district or the school should buy the WIDA consortium and the can-do descriptors for every classroom, regardless of if they have a non-native speaker or not. That's something that could be used for many, many years and many students across the board. Some takeaways that I had from this survey was that there is a 100% increase from teachers thinking the WIDA can-do descriptors are effective, and 100% of the teachers surveys wanted to learn how to effectively help their ESL students communicate and participate. So everybody was all interested and 100% willing to do the training. There are many teachers in the education field that are being faced with situations that they are not prepared for, and while 100% of the teachers are required to have their masters, there is zero training in ESL work to prepare them for the children in their classes. My name is Sarah Whitlock. I am